Imagine stepping into a sunlit oceanfront penthouse perched above the Pacific, its panoramic windows revealing turquoise waters and rolling waves. Plush leather sofas, marble floors, and a private jacuzzi on the terrace hint at a life most can only dream of. Now imagine that this is the other side of a man who for months every year sleeps on a frigid cabin couch and lives on chocolate milk. This extreme contrast is at the heart of Tony Beets' story, a rugged Yukon miner whose pockets went from empty to overflowing, but whose days remained defined by grit and grind. This is the rich and luxurious lifestyle that he built, on his own brutal terms. His empire spans decades of hardship, innovation, and jaw-dropping paydays, all narrated by millions of reality fans worldwide. By day, Tony navigates a personal fleet valued at over $5 million, bulldozers, excavators, and an ancient Viking dredge resurrected from oblivion. When cameras aren't rolling for Gold Rush, he retreats to a private compound in Dawson City, featuring a workshop stocked with custom tools and equipment that would intimidate most industrial magnates. Offshore, he owns a sleek oceanfront condo in Puerto Vallarta, bought for over $1 million, where the only sounds are crashing waves and distant laughter from local markets. Between those two worlds, Tony maintains a simple diet of chocolate milk and sandwiches, proving that even the richest among us can thrive on modest comforts. He supplements his leisure time with a vintage speedboat moored at a private dock and an impressive garage of luxury vehicles, including custom off-road trucks and restored classics. Yet during mining season, he squeezes into a cramped cabin, trading heated floors for frozen wood planks. Each winter, Tony escapes the biting Yukon cold, swapping parkas for linen shirts on tropical beaches. He hosts elaborate gatherings for friends and family at his coastal retreat, hosting barbecues on sun-drenched terraces with catered fare flown in from across North America. Yet his off-season opulence never dulls the edge with which he runs Tamarack Inc. Back at the Klondike Claims, he still re-inspects every pump, welds his own repairs, and sleeps in a stripped-down cabin bunkhouse. That duality, millionaire playboy by day, relentless workhorse by night, defines a man who refuses to rest until every ounce of gold is extracted. While rival crews bunk down in heated trailers and rely on scripted drama for ratings, Tony's crew thrives on genuine risk, organic conflict, and real human stakes. Cameras follow him as he surveys sprawling earth cuts, counts raw clumps of ore, and calculates weekly yields down to the last gram. His viewers aren't tuning in for staged fights or contrived challenges, they come for unfiltered truths, cold nights, machine breakdowns, and those breathtaking moments when a sluice box pays out enough to justify every sacrifice. Today, Tony's net worth hovers around $20 million, a figure that would amaze the cowhand he once was. But that fortune didn't come without controversy. In 2014, he set a mining pond ablaze in a self-styled Viking ritual and racked up over $30,000 in fines. He scoffed at environmental warnings and faced off with regulators on national television. Rather than bow to corporate scripts, he demanded authenticity. This is real mining, not Hollywood BS. His defiance earned him a permanent spot in the spotlight, transforming a background operator into a marquee star whose stubborn insistence on genuine work over stage spectacle resonates with fans around the world. His paycheck skyrocketed in response. What started as $10,000 per episode ballooned to over $150,000 in later seasons. Meanwhile, sales of Gold Rush merchandise featuring his signature Dutch accent and no-nonsense quips became a six-figure sideline. He reinvested heavily in new equipment, channeling 70% of every payday back into trucks, trailers, and state-of-the-art wash plants. Yet in the Yukon, he still sleeps on a thrift store couch and keeps only chocolate milk stocked in his fridge. That choice underscores the man's obsessive dedication to the grind, even as his bank balance swells beyond what most would deem necessary. Over the next few minutes, we'll pull back the curtain on Tony's dual existence, from frostbitten cabins to luxury hideaways, from DIY machine doctoring to custom-built gold plants, and from modest living essentials to multi-million-dollar indulgences. We'll explore how a boy, who once earned less than minimum wage, became an unstoppable force in the Klondike, how his renegade mentality turned fines into publicity gold, and how he balances life as a mining mogul with that of a dessert-sipping beachcomber. Get ready to witness the true cost and true value of the richest challenges on Earth. Our journey begins not with manicured estates or lavish vacations, but in Wijdeens, a remote Dutch hamlet where Tony Beets was born on December 15, 1959. Picture sparse wood fences, cattle grazing under gray skies, and a family cabin heated by a single stove. Winters dipped to -8 degrees Celsius below sea level, crippling livestock and freezing water pipes. By age 5, Tony's small hands were blistered from pre-dawn cow milking, repeating that brutal ritual for years before most kids even tied their own shoes. His parents scraped by on a 50-cow dairy, earning barely 2 guilders per animal each month. After feed, vet bills and equipment repairs, the farm barely generated 200 guilders. Tony's mother collapsed from exhaustion during calving, and his father's hands twisted from years of milking. The family of 6 lived in just 89 square meters, so Tony shared a bed with his brothers until age 14. School often took a backseat to emergencies. Some years he missed over 40 days to haul hay, clean stalls, and gather calves. At 12, Tony stunned his community by refusing church confirmation classes, choosing instead to learn mechanics on a 1965 Massey Ferguson tractor he drove through muddy fields. He could listen to an engine's hum and tell which ring or rod needed replacement. He once rebuilt a hydraulic pump from scavenged sheet metal and wire, impressing the blacksmith. That same year a cow kicked him in the chest, shattering 2 ribs and leading to a 6-day hospital stay that added a $420 guilder bill to his family's mounting debts. His father's anger wasn't just over money, it was over Tony's independence. When rumors circulated that young Minnie from the neighboring farm might be pregnant, Tony realized there was no future in that dying dairy. He and Minnie carved their initials in an old barn's rafters 5 meters above the ground, dreaming of a life beyond Dutch pastures. By 1978, Tony calculated that Canadian farm workers earned more than double his wage. Diesel prices had tripled and milk prices stagnated at 0.68 guilders per liter for 3 years. That arithmetic convinced him to seize one last chance. In 1980, packing 2 suitcases and 17-year-old determination, Tony and Minnie slipped away to British Columbia with 1,200 guilders and no English. Landing in Abbotsford, they signed up at Pacific Mushroom Farms, where Tony endured dank windowless rooms reeking of ammonia and mold. Shifts lasted 14 hours, pay was 35 cents an hour, and rats scurried through compost piles. Minnie, pregnant now, worked second shift weeding fungi beds for even less. They lived in a damp basement under threadbare blankets, chewing stale bread to survive. Forklifts almost crushed Tony when warning signs went unread. He learned English by listening to radio announcements while hauling crates. After 8 months and 30 kilos lost each, they nearly surrendered, but something inside him refused to quit. In March 1982, a construction scaffolding collapse in Vancouver sent Tony tumbling 30 feet, cracking his skull and landing him back in a hospital bed for 6 days. The 10,000 guilder compensation changed everything, more than any dairy or fungus field could ever pay. Yet what struck him harder was the indifference of supervisors who ignored safety pleas. That betrayal fueled a lifelong distrust of authority. He used that payout to buy a beat-up pickup, basic tools, and a vow: never again work under callous managers. Instead, he would work for himself, on his own brutal terms. He drifted into Alberta's oil fields by late 1982, earning $15 an hour on a rig. But in 1984, the oil crash yanked the rug out from under 85,000 workers. Tony lost his job along with the rest. Rent was $500 for a cramped apartment, and now there were 3 mouths to feed. Minnie clocked double shifts at a greasy spoon diner, her hands scarred by steam and grease. They pawned wedding rings, heated baby bottles with candles, and scraped frost off windows by hand. Christmas Eve eviction papers arrived, and Tony realized raw determination needed a richer reward. He pointed his beat-up Ford north on the Alaska Highway with $200. The odometer passed 200,000 miles as he fought brake failures on ice-coated roads. 6 breakdowns later, he limped into Dawson City hungry. He begged managers for any mining job, despite training with sluice boxes or wash plants. A foreman gave him a bulldozer shift at $12 an hour. On day 1, Tony misjudged a slope and backed into a rock sluice box, tearing hoses and causing $3,000 damage. Instead of firing him, they kept him when he proudly volunteered 16-hour days to make up for it. That first winter in Dawson City tested Tony's resolve in ways no Dutch dairy barn never could. Temperatures plunged past -50°C, and the walls of his rented trailer groaned under ice. The single stove suffocated on frozen fuel lines, forcing Tony to pile on borrowed wool socks, 2 pairs of mittens, and coveralls that smelled of engine oil. He'd wake to fogged-up breath on the ceiling, ears numb, dreams drowned out by howling wind. One January night, a blizzard snapped a power line and killed the generator. Tony crawled out into the drifting white, each step a battle, and fought the wind to jump-start it. When he finally crawled back inside, his fingers had turned black, and the nurse in Whitehorse warned him he might lose 3 if he didn't evacuate by air. Tony refused. He sank jars of beanie stew into the heater's embers, and soaked his hands in lukewarm water for weeks, losing sensation in 2 digits but saving his claim. By spring, word of Tony's tenacity spread among the Klondike camps. He'd arrived broke and half-frozen, yet stood grinning under a canvas tent, welding broken pipeline joints by headlamp. When Guggenheim Creek's main excavator snapped a hydraulic line on opening day, managers panicked. They offered triple overtime to fix it, but only Tony had the guts to rig a makeshift clamp from a discarded coupling and fence wire. 2 sleepless nights later, the machine roared back to life, saving the crew's $150,000 season. In gratitude, they doubled his wage. That moment taught him machine mastery paid more than gold dust. Flush with extra cash, Tony leased his first solo claim on Bonanza Creek for $5,000 in 1986. He scraped together enough feed to keep 2 cows back in Widgeon's for Lucky Charm, then tore open the gravel with a borrowed sluice. By midday, he'd pulled 20 ounces, worth about $8,000, and visions of riches danced in his mind. But spring floods swallowed his shelter and half his gear, sweeping his makeshift mill toward the Yukon River in a torrent of mud and logs. He watched from a leash-trapped barge as $4,000 worth of pumps and pipes vanished downstream. That brutal lesson burned. Nature didn't care how desperate you were. Determined, Tony partnered in 1987 with Jake Morrison, enticed by glowing gold reports. He invested his $20,000 in equipment leases and hopeful dreams. But the assays were fake. Jake had scammed 2 other miners. Months of hard work yielded barely a handful of flakes. Fury boiled over into a street brawl. Court summons followed, and Tony declared bankruptcy. His reputation suffered, but local crews whispered respect for his refusal to back down. He clawed his way back behind the controls of someone else's bulldozer, paying off debts 1 ounce at a time. In 1988, Big Al McGregor hired him to manage a remote wash plant. Tony noticed fine gold escaping through oversized screens, slipping through sluice riffles like water. Overnights on shift, he designed a 3-stage mesh system, scavenging scrap metal from derelict gear. The next day, assays showed a 30% jump in recovery. Al rewarded him with a $50,000 bonus and a locker full of custom tools. Word spread that Tony didn't tolerate slackers. He fired a trio caught drinking on the job, and replaced them with hand-picked laborers who shared his ruthless work ethic. The winter of 1989 saw operations falter when permafrost heaved trenches shut. Crews huddled in trailers, but Tony welded diesel burners to heat lines and devised a circulation system that kept yellow metal flowing. That season, they extracted 150 ounces, valued at $60,000. When payday came, Tony pocketed half to purchase his first Caterpillar 225 excavator. He felt his identity shift from hired hands to owner-operator. He no longer worked for gold. Gold worked for him. At 31 in 1990, Tony stunned everyone by purchasing Tamarack Inc. for $1.2 million. The deal sounded golden. 10 claims spread across 500 acres. Reality slammed him the next morning. Hidden debts lurked. $800,000 in unpaid loans, payroll taxes, and environmental levies. Creditors stared him down, interest rates gouged him, and equipment lay repossessed overnight. He sold his modest house, mortgaged family land, and threw himself into 18-hour days. Nights blurred into dawn, as he balanced books by candlelight, patched leaky roofs, and coaxed aging machines back to life. There was no glamour, only desperation, and the fear of losing everything he'd built. Undeterred, in 1991, he gambled on Scribner Creek, investing $200,000 in a state-of-the-art wash plant. For a moment, it looked foolproof. Streams of gold-laden gravel flowed through massive grizzlies, trommels churning like hungry beasts. Then the ground beneath two bulldozers collapsed into thawed sinkholes, swallowing each $80,000 machine whole. Tony's crew fought back with picks and shovels under starry January skies, but recovery took days, long naked hours in the cold. By season's end, the plant dust settled on only a few $100s worth of flakes. Balance sheets bled red, but the lessons of that frozen wasteland, about geotech, ground support, and the arrogance of high-tech, became the foundation for a more cautious expansion. Through these wins and losses, Tony honed a brutal formula: buy claims others avoid, innovate on broken parts, and push boundaries the experts call impossible. Each setback was repaid with sweat, lunch pails, and midnight oil. Cameras would later capture those moments in high definition: the blaze of welding sparks, the creak of settling ice, and the raw laughter when machines roared back to life against all odds. Yet behind every roaring engine was a man who had learned toughness by frostbite, bankruptcy, and sheer stubborn will. That fierce independence would soon pull him from the icy creeks of the Klondike into the glare of primetime television, and toward a fortune that still leaves him sleeping on a couch between seasons. That spring of 2011 marked the turning point when Discovery Channel cameras first rolled on Tony's operation. Initially signed for a 3-episode arc, at $10,000 each, he was barely a footnote, a stoic Dutchman stomping through mud, hauling ore, and muttering in his unmistakable accent. The producers planned to film Parker Schnabel as the rising star, with Tony in the background as just another grizzled hand. But during one tense encounter, Tony exploded. He unloaded a barrage of Dutch-flavored profanity at Parker, accusing him of being a spoiled kid who'd never survive a week of real mining. That blistering rant exploded online, sparking over 50,000 comments in 24 hours. Discovery executives watched ratings surge by 23% that week, propelling the show from 2.6 million to 3.2 million viewers. All of a sudden, Tony was no longer supporting cast, he was the whole damn show. Tony brought into the spotlight. His per-episode fee jumped to $15,000, and his screen time quadrupled from 8 minutes to over 30. Viewers couldn't get enough of his relentless work ethic, his blunt critiques of corporate speak, and his personal philosophy. That's not mining, that's gambling. Merch sales spiked as fans clamored for hats and shirts, emblazoned with his catchphrase. Meanwhile, Tony funneled 70% of his newfound television earnings back into Tamarack, ordering 2 new EC550 excavators and upgrading every wash plant with custom heating coils to combat frozen sluice boxes. Yet every season he returned to that same battered couch in a one-room cabin, haunted by frost-shattered windows and a lonely wood stove. His fridge still held only cold cuts and chocolate milk. Then came 2014, the year Tony staged a so-called Viking ritual on camera. He doused a nearby sluice pond with diesel and set it ablaze, hoping to recreate an ancient purification rite. The cameras caught the flames leaping under ice-capped banks, and the look of fierce pride on Tony's face. But Yukon regulators saw environmental havoc. Fish perished, water was tainted, and a $31,000 fine landed squarely on Tony's shoulders. Rather than slip into apology, he stood in front of the cameras and declared, "These bureaucrats can kiss my Dutch ass." The clip shattered YouTube records for reality TV outburst footage, racking up 2.3 million views in a week. Discovery immediately bumped his salary to $25,000 per episode, arguing there was no hotter property on the network. That fiery stunt cemented Tony's persona as the unvarnished truth. No scripts, no stage drama, just raw, combustible human conflict. By 2016, Tony's fame spawned a spin-off series, Gold Rush. The Dirt. Producers promised fans exclusive insights into his home life, his workshops, and behind-the-scenes planning sessions. Now earning $175,000 per episode, Tony allowed cameras to capture every weld spark and every spat with his kids and crew. When his son Kevin refused to drop wages for a rookie mistake, Tony's gruff father-son confrontation drove the series to its highest-rated mid-season finale. 4.8 million viewers. Skeptics suspected staged conflict, but social media polls revealed that 82% of fans believed the anger was real. Tony leveraged that tension to negotiate a year-round contract, making him one of the highest-paid reality stars in North America. As his screen persona blossomed, so did his real-life riches. His Dawson City compound expanded from a single rental cabin to a cluster of heated modular units, each wired with satellite uplinks and stocked with spare parts for every piece of mining kit he owns. A private workshop houses a fleet of 5 welders, 3 lathes, and a CNC plasma cutter. Offshore, his oceanfront condo in Puerto Vallarta remains his sanctuary. Valued at $1.2 million, it boasts floor-to-ceiling glass walls, a marble-tiled terrace, and its own water filtration system to ensure the chocolate milk stays drinkable. Every winter, Tony retreats there for 6 weeks, jet skiing off a private dock and hosting curated barbecues with imported Canadian beef. Tony's automotive collection garners less screen time but is equally impressive. 2 custom Ford Raptors lifted 8 inches, an F350 dually forged for hauling gold-bearing gravels, and a 1978 Mercedes 300 GD he restored piece by piece. He keeps them in a climate-controlled garage, alongside snowmobiles, and an enclosed 6-axle trailer that once hauled his 1930s Viking dredge from California. When production slows, he personally engines test each rig, greasing bearings and replacing seals to avoid mid-season breakdowns. That hands-on approach echoes the very first days when he fixed a busted pipeline with fence-line wire and a welded clamp. Despite this opulence, Tony retains the most Spartan tastes in everyday life. During mining season, he subsists on chocolate milk, boiled eggs, and powdered oatmeal. His sleeping arrangement never changes: a foam mattress on a metal frame, surrounded by spare hoses and chains. His uniform consists of Carhartt overalls, steel-toe boots, and a fur-lined baseball cap. He washes his clothes in a basic sink, and hangs them on lines stretched across the cabin. His only concession to comfort is a lithium-powered heater that runs off a solar panel and a small diesel generator, more for starting drills than warming toes. This extreme duality attracts millions of viewers, families tuning in for the rags-to-riches narrative, gearheads fascinated by heavy machinery lore, and armchair adventurers living vicariously through Tony's every gambit. He cultivated that audience by refusing network scripts. When producers pushed for contrived arguments or staged breakdowns, Tony simply shut the door and walked back to his workshop. Ratings soared, proving that authenticity trumps manufactured conflict. His formula is straightforward: a visceral hook. He set a pond on fire, a humanizing struggle. He slept on a couch in -20 degrees, and a triumphant payoff. He banked $400,000 in a season. As of today, Tony Beets' net worth is estimated at over $20 million. Tamarack, Inc. holds 337 claims across 600 square miles of Yukon territory, yielding between 1,500 and 2,000 ounces of gold per year, worth up to $4 million at current prices. Discovery Channel pays him $300,000 annually just for cameo appearances outside the main Gold Rush series. And every penny of his television income is funneled back into expansions, equipment upgrades, and environmental safeguards he designs himself. Recycling systems that prevent future fines, flood alarms to protect wash plants, and backup generators for power outages. Yet when the cameras blink off, he still sleeps on that thrift store couch and subsists on chocolate milk. That contradiction between millionaire mogul and subsistence bunkhouse denizen lies at the heart of his legend. Tony's story isn't just about gold. It's about a man who reframed adversity as opportunity and leveraged raw authenticity into unprecedented success. The same hands that once blistered in icy barns now command millions in machinery, and the same voice that shouted curses at regulators now resonates worldwide through cable networks and streaming platforms. He built a multi-million-dollar empire using grit, innovation, and an unflinching refusal to bow to scripted drama. Through frostbitten nights and tropical retreats, he remains the living embodiment of the most powerful hook in media: real people doing extraordinary things, unscripted. But Tony's journey has not been entirely free of friction beyond the high-stakes gold he mines. In 2018, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans delivered a brutal blow. His water license was revoked after inspectors found salmon habitat destruction around dredge sites. Without flowing water, gold stops, and Tony's entire crew, over 30 seasoned miners, sat idle for 3 months. That hiatus drained $500,000 from projected revenues and strained relationships in Dawson City, where local businesses depend on his operations. Instead of conceding defeat, Tony flew to Whitehorse and launched a public campaign, framing the dispute as bureaucracy strangling working families. He spoke at town halls, rallied community leaders, and rallied over 100,000 social media supporters. 6 weeks later, under mounting political pressure, regulators reinstated provisional permits with strict environmental monitoring conditions. This episode became a case study in strategic showdown. When you mine under Tony's watch, you navigate gold veins and red tape with equal ferocity. Legal battles resurfaced again in 2019, when Tony's notorious Viking ritual drew fresh scrutiny. After a failed appeal, judicial opinions described his flame-igniting stunt as reckless pollution, and additional fines brought his total penalties to over $41,000. Yet, the timing underscored his uncanny knack for turning controversies into ratings upgrades. That season's episode, Pond Fire Fury, averaged 6 million viewers, an all-time high, and Discovery rewarded him with a $100,000 performance bonus. He pocketed every penny but funneled half back into environmental safeguards. He built a custom water treatment system that recycles 95% of processed water, preventing future fines and easing local tensions. In this way, Tony transformed fines into investments, bottling network drama as fuel for real-world innovation. By 2020, rumors swirled online that Tony might face jail time for unlicensed operations. Though those claims proved false, a 2022 safety audit uncovered lapses in equipment certification. His crew faced a potential $100,000 fine, while work halted on tracks known to hold nearly 4,000 ounces of gold, an estimated $1.6 million in value. Rather than pay up or fold, Tony's legal team negotiated a consent agreement requiring only incremental upgrades and regular site inspections. He agreed to install remote monitoring cameras and hire an environmental liaison for the territory. These measures cost an estimated $75,000, but restored operational momentum within weeks and reinforced his image as a willing problem solver when public pressure mounts. During these crises, Tony never lost sight of family. Minnie, his partner since swinging barn doors in Widgeons, runs the company's finances with razor precision. She oversees a $5 million yearly budget, negotiating equipment leases and managing payroll for 50 full-time workers. Their daughter Monica became Yukon's youngest licensed bulldozer operator at 16, pulling in $80,000 her first season. When she decided to elope in 2010, production faltered until Tony apologized and offered better work-life balance for the crew. That same year, son Kevin proved his mettle by mining 1,000 ounces on vintage gear. Tony's initial refusal to help financed Kevin's confidence, and when father and son reconciled, that sequence generated 2.3 million views online. These genuine family tensions, battles over respect, independence, and legacy, draw an audience who sees themselves in each confrontation. In boardrooms and workshops, Tony repurposes that family ethos for branding. Gold Rush merchandise, caps, gloves, enamel mugs stamped with his "Kiss My Dutch Ass" retort, pull in over $200,000 annually. He appears at industry expos, giving keynote speeches on mining without compromise, where his raw storytelling outperforms polished corporate pitches. Each autograph session, each branded hoodie sold, cements his image as the people's miner, someone who extracts both precious metals and unvarnished truth. Meanwhile, Tony's social media channels share unfiltered footage, walk-around tours of his oceanfront condo in Puerto Vallarta, where hammocks sway under coconut palms, late-night tutorials on welding G-scale quick couplers, brutally honest machine maintenance tips shot in grainy workshop light. This blend of exotic retreat and hands-on advice keeps fans glued to every post. Charitable work quietly complements his flamboyant public persona. Each December, Tony donates mining equipment and tutored apprenticeships to Northern First Nations youth, teaching them heavy equipment operation and mechanical repair free of charge. Tamarack Inc. also underwrites a scholarship for children of fallen miners, ensuring that education and safety aren't luxuries in isolated communities. These efforts rarely make network promos, but they foster enduring goodwill. When regulatory hearings loom or social media storms surge, local leaders speak up on Tony's behalf, citing his tangible investments in child welfare and workforce development. As 2025 dawned, Tony faced another regulatory bottleneck: new habitat restoration bond requirements, stalled permits at the worst possible time, during peak season breakup. Each week of delay equaled roughly $700,000 in lost gold, yet fixed costs for staffing and equipment ran $200,000 weekly. Instead of waiting, he chartered a private jet to Ottawa, lobbying policymakers directly. Video of his fiery speech, lines about legitimate work sacrificed for green tape, garnered 150,000 reactions online, and accelerated permit approvals within 10 days. His team mobilized at midnight, dredges roared back to life, and the pause cost just $900,000, less than half the original worst-case estimate. Again, Tony turned red tape into a narrative arc, part crisis, part victory lap. Through these countless clashes, with nature, with authority, and even within his own family, Tony Beets remains a study in contrasts. He's a millionaire who sleeps on a thrift store couch, a reality star who refuses scripts, a rebel who builds community goodwill, and a showman whose real-life tales outshine any stage drama. In the next and final section, we'll examine how this unbreakable drive shapes the next chapter of his empire, from multi-million-dollar equipment gambles to the uncharted frontiers of digital content and post-gold rush ventures. We'll see how Tony plans to leverage his brand, invest in emerging mining technologies, and possibly, one day, take his rugged yet luxurious lifestyle to territories even more extreme than the Klondike. Looking ahead, Tony Beets isn't content to rest on decades of Klondike success. He's setting his sights on a future defined by high-tech innovation and expanded media influence. First, he's quietly funding research into autonomous dredge technology, self-guided excavators equipped with GPS mapping, sonar ground penetration sensors, and remote monitoring capabilities. By partnering with a Canadian robotics startup, he plans to deploy prototypes on low-risk claims next season. If successful, these machines could run 24/7 with minimal supervision, slashing labor costs and boosting gold recovery efficiency by up to 30%. That edge would cement his reputation not just as a rugged hands-on miner, but as a forward-thinking industry leader. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Tamarack Inc. is carving out a role in next-generation mineral analytics. Tony has invested in machine learning software that analyzes slurry samples on-site, identifying trace element patterns that point to richer deposits. Instead of shipping raw gravel back to off-site labs, he'll use portable spectrometers to process data in real time. This shift accelerates drilling decisions and claim acquisitions. Tony's hallmark aggressive strategy, while reducing environmental disturbance. By leveraging custom algorithms tuned to Yukon geology, he aims to expand into adjacent territories one claim at a time, outmaneuvering competitors who still rely on old-school assay reports. At the same time, Tony is exploring new frontiers beyond the north. He's in talks to join a consortium testing seafloor mining drones off the coast of British Columbia, where polymetallic nodules teem with rare earth elements critical to electronics and electric vehicles. Although regulations remain unsettled, Tony views this as a long-term play to diversify his portfolio away from gold alone. He's already secured exploratory leases and is mapping shipping logistics that could one day link deep-sea harvesters to his Puerto Vallarta workshop, where underutilized shipping containers could house processing modules. If he cracks the code on sustainable seabed extraction, he'll write the next gold rush chapter, this time beneath the waves. Another pillar of Tony's next phase is deepening his commitment to environmental stewardship. After years of battling fines, he's assembling a team of hydrologists, ecologists, and indigenous land stewards to co-develop best practices for cold region mining. Together they'll pilot an innovative meltwater collection system that captures spring runoff for reuse in wash plants, cutting freshwater withdrawals by 90%. Tony plans to share those blueprints freely with neighboring operators, building goodwill and raising the industry standard. His motto, "Once kiss my Dutch ass to bureaucrats," is evolving into a tagline for practical sustainability. Work smart, leave no trace. On the media front, Tony is transforming his personal brand into a holistic content empire. In addition to Gold Rush and its spin-offs, He's producing a YouTube miniseries called Tech Meets Klondike, showcasing field trials of drones, sensors, and AI rigs. Each episode will pair his no-nonsense commentary with drone cinematography of rugged landscapes, offering subscribers a blend of educational deep dives and classic Tony moments, grumpy asides, mechanical triumphs, and that signature accent. He's also contracted with a podcast network to host Under the Shovel, a weekly show interviewing engineers, geologists, and fellow reality stars about the future of resource extraction. Exploring the Web3 space, Tony recently launched a limited series of digital collectibles tied to landmark events in his career: the 1980 Alaska Highway arrival, the 2014 pond fire stunt, and the 2018 environmental showdown. Each NFT grants holders access to virtual Pan for Gold experiences built with VR, complete with realistic sluice simulation and Tony's custom voiceover instructions. Early feedback indicates a highly engaged community, willing to pay premium prices. Fans see these tokens as the new memorabilia, collecting digital pieces of his legend. Proceeds will fund a scholarship program for indigenous mining apprentices, reinforcing his philanthropic credentials. Beyond entertainment and digital assets, Tony's looking at manufacturing. He's in preliminary talks with a heavy equipment fabricator to launch a line of Klondike rigs, modular wash plants, and portable dredges optimized for cold climates. Branded under Tamarack Technologies, these units would incorporate his proprietary mesh systems, heating coils, and recycled water loops. Tony envisions a global customer base, from Alaskan prospectors to Siberian gold panners, all seeking turnkey solutions developed by a proven Yukon veteran. Licensing agreements could generate recurring royalties, turning his first-hand engineering tweaks into scalable revenue streams. On the philanthropic side, Tony's next frontier is education. He's drafting a curriculum for field mining mechanics, a travel program that brings engineering students to Dawson City for immersive semesters. Participants live in modular cabins, operate real-world equipment under Tony's supervision, and complete crisis response simulations, like repairing a broken sluice box during a simulated blizzard. Partner universities will grant credits, Muskeg College will award certificates, and sponsors like heavy equipment manufacturers will fund scholarships. This initiative combines Tony's values of hands-on learning, self-reliance, and community uplift. Despite these grand plans, the core of Tony Beets' identity remains unchanged: determination grounded in frigid nights and busted machines. He'll likely continue sleeping in cabins during filming seasons, living off chocolate milk, and lashing together creative mechanical fixes when a critical component fails. Yet behind each weld and each camera cut lies a vision of expansion and adaptation. The same obsessive drive that once transformed $200 into a multi-million-dollar mining empire now fuels a bold diversification strategy, melding old-school grit with frontier tech, raw reality TV with Web3 ventures, and environmental respect with profit imperatives. The ultimate question is whether Tony's next chapter can balance the brute force determination fans love with sophisticated sustainable practices. Will autonomous dredges replace long nights spent under headlamps? Can a digital collectible or VR sluice experience capture the authenticity of real mud-stained gloves? Only time will tell, but if history is any guide, Tony won't wait for permission. He'll build the future himself, on his own brutal terms. And if that means mining beneath the ocean, lecturing regulators in Ottawa, or teaching a rookie class how to weld in -50 cold, he'll be there, sleepless and unbowed.